For centuries, no one had dared to defy the Council like this, and now humanity had done so twice. The galaxy had witnessed not rebellion, not war, but the unyielding strength of human resolve. As Navara Prime's sun set, casting long shadows over the crystal towers, a strange calm fell over the humans. They had escalated without anger, defended without firing, and gained respect without demanding it. The Council had entered panic. Humanity had entered history. Captain Renner allowed himself a brief smile. The storm was not over. More challenges awaited. But one truth was clear. Humans were no longer the small, underestimated species of a single planet. They were a force to be reckoned with, and the galaxy would never look at Earth the same way again. The Council chambers were quieter than usual, but tension still lingered in every corner. After days of confrontations, strategic displays, and the unwavering resolve of humans, the delegates were exhausted. Panic had grown into genuine fear, and even the most arrogant species began to realize that Earth's people could not be controlled by old rules or empty threats. Captain Elias Renner stood at the center of the human delegation, his posture calm, his gaze steady. He knew the moment of real influence had arrived. The humans had proven their strength in space, their intelligence in diplomacy, and their courage in facing centuries of alien tradition. Now, it was time for the galaxy to recognize it. A representative from the crystalline species, once proud and confident, spoke first. "Perhaps we have underestimated humans," it admitted reluctantly. The words were careful, cautious, but they carried the weight of centuries of authority bending. Murmurs filled the chamber. Aliens exchanged glances, realizing that humans had changed the balance of power without firing a single shot. Elias responded with calm authority. "We did not come to dominate, to frighten, or to insult. Humans came to be recognized as equals, to show that courage, reason, and unity are stronger than fear and tradition. We will not bow, but we do not seek conflict. We seek understanding, and we seek respect." Delegates whispered frantically among themselves. Some were shocked by the simplicity and clarity of his words. Others debated fiercely, trying to find a way to maintain authority without causing further panic. For the first time, the Council's decisions were not dictated by centuries of hierarchy, but by a species that refused to bend under pressure. Humans rejected every demand that compromised their freedom or their sovereignty. They offered alliances, yes, but only ones based on trust and equality. Every time a delegate tried to pressure them, humans responded with reason. Every time tradition demanded submission, humans answered with logic and courage. It was a new kind of power, one that could not be fought with weapons or intimidation. Hours passed, and the Council began to yield. Votes were held, and for the first time, the outcomes were swayed not by fear, but by respect for humanity's determination. Aliens realized that humans had earned a place among them, not through threats or deception, but through consistency, clarity, and the unshakable resolve of their species. Elias addressed the Council one final time. "We have not arrived here to conquer or destroy. We have arrived to show that respect is earned through action, courage, and truth. Humanity is ready to join the galaxy, not as followers, but as partners. And we will continue to prove that our commitment to freedom and fairness benefits not only our people, but all who seek a better future." The chamber fell silent. Delegates looked at one another, unsure how to respond. Some bowed slightly, acknowledging the truth of his words. Others remained tense, but even they could not ignore the power of what humans had accomplished. Panic had begun as fear, escalated through uncertainty, and now settled into quiet, grudging respect. Outside, the suns of Novara Prime dipped behind distant mountains, casting warm golden light across the crystal towers. Humanity's delegation returned to their quarters, tired but triumphant. They had faced the most powerful council in the galaxy, and they had emerged victorious, not through force, not through intimidation, but through unity, courage, and intelligence. For the first time in galactic history, humans had changed the rules of power. They had shown that fear could be met with reason, that threats could be met with courage, and that a small species from a distant blue planet could reshape the galaxy without firing a single shot. Captain Renner allowed himself a rare smile, feeling the weight of history pressing on his shoulders. The Council had yielded, the galaxy had learned a lesson, and humanity's place among the stars had been secured. From now on, The galaxy would think twice before underestimating Earth. And in the quiet moments of that evening, as the council chambers settled into an uneasy calm, a new chapter began, not for the council but for humanity, whose rise was just beginning. The galaxy was silent in anticipation, as if holding its breath. News of the council's yield to humanity spread like wildfire across star systems. From the smallest mining colonies on distant moons to the sprawling trade cities of the Xyleran homeworld, whispers and messages carried the same truth. Humans had not only survived, they had reshaped the power of the galaxy. Captain Elias Renner stood on the observation deck of the flagship, watching the stars stretch endlessly into the void. He did not feel triumph alone. Beside him, the human delegation shared quiet smiles, weary yet proud. They had fought no wars, yet they had conquered more than any weapon could achieve. Their victory was measured not in destruction, but in influence, respect, and the undeniable power of unity and intellect. In the council chambers, delegates met in hurried, anxious meetings. They argued, debated, and tried to rewrite rules that humans had already shown were obsolete. Some species considered isolating Earth, attempting to undermine their growing alliances, but the humans were prepared. Each move they made was precise, deliberate, and informed. Humans had anticipated fear, manipulation, and betrayal. They responded not with anger, but with strategy, calm reasoning, and unwavering strength. Elias remembered the first day they had entered the council halls. Back then, the chamber had been filled with arrogance, whispers, and doubt. Delegates had believed humans would bend, that they would be intimidated by fleets, traditions, and centuries of hierarchy. But humans had done the unimaginable. They had remained true to their principles, faced fear with courage, and shattered centuries of expectation without a single act of violence. Messages of hope and inspiration poured in from allied species and colonies. Many looked to humans as examples of courage and perseverance, a species that refused to yield to oppression or fear. Across the galaxy, communities celebrated humanity's rise. It was a victory not just for Earth, but for all who sought freedom, equality, and respect. In the council chamber, delegates who had once sneered at humans now studied them in cautious admiration. The crystal towers that had always symbolized rigid authority now reflected something new: respect for the courage of a small blue planet. Some delegates even whispered that humanity had taught them an invaluable lesson, that power without fairness and understanding was fragile, and that fear could be met with courage, intelligence, and unity. Elias addressed the council one last time, his voice calm but filled with quiet authority. We have shown that humans are not to be underestimated. We have proven that respect is earned, not demanded. We did not come to dominate or to frighten, but to stand as equals. And we will continue to stand, not as conquerors, but as partners, friends, and protectors of the galaxy we share. A silence followed, heavy with realization. The council had been humbled not by fleets, but by the unyielding spirit of humanity. For the first time in galactic history, a species had risen not through force, but through courage, intelligence, and unity. As night fell over Novara Prime, the twin suns dipped below the horizon, casting soft golden light across the crystal spires. Across the galaxy, lights blinked on distant planets, a silent recognition of the new era that had begun. Humanity had arrived not as subjects of the council, not as timid newcomers, but as equals, respected and feared for the strength of their mind and spirit. Elias turned to his team, his heart swelling with quiet pride. "We have done more than survive," he said softly. "We have changed the galaxy, and this is only the beginning." Outside the council chambers, alien species whispered in awe and anxiety. The galaxy had learned a truth it could not ignore. Humans were not to be trifled with. They had proven that courage, unity, and intelligence were stronger than fear, tradition, or intimidation. And somewhere deep among the stars, a quiet voice admitted the truth. Humanity had not just arrived, they had triumphed. The galaxy would never be the same again. From that day forward, tales of human courage spread from system to system, inspiring hope, determination, and a new understanding. Humanity had risen not as conquerors, but as champions of possibility. The universe had been reminded forever that when humans set their minds to a challenge, no force, no matter how ancient or powerful, could hold them back. The Galactic Council had never seen humans like this before. Delegates from hundreds of star systems had gathered in the towering crystal halls of Novara Prime. the council's homeworld. Light refracted off the enormous walls, scattering rainbows across the room, but the beauty of the hall could not hide the tension in the air. Aliens of all shapes and sizes whispered among themselves, slithering serpents with glimmering scales, towering giants with hands that could crush a ship, and beings made entirely of shifting light. Each species had its own customs, its own way of reading power, and yet all of them were uneasy. Today, humans would speak, and no one knew exactly what to expect. Captain Elias Renner led the human delegation. He was tall and lean, with a calm expression that hid the storm of thoughts inside his mind. Years of preparation had brought them here. Years of watching, learning, and planning. Earth had sent humanity as more than representatives. They were here to show that humans could not be ignored, could not be underestimated. Elias knew that other species had their traditions, their rules, and their arrogance. But humans had a strength no one could predict: determination. As the council session began, every eye turned toward the human delegation. A low hum of whispers ran through the chamber, a mix of curiosity, doubt, and fear. Captain Renner stepped forward, his boots echoing on the polished crystal floor. He did not raise his voice, but it carried clearly to every corner of the room. "Honorable delegates," Elias began, his voice steady and confident. "Humans have traveled far, and we have learned much. We come seeking cooperation and understanding, but we will not bow. We will not surrender our freedom, and we will not compromise the safety and dignity of our people for empty promises." The room fell silent. Many of the council members had expected fear, trembling, perhaps even obedience. Instead, they saw calm, certainty, and the strange courage of humans. Some tried to hide their shock behind polite nods. Others whispered urgently to their neighbors. Humans were not aggressive. They were something far more unsettling: resolute. Elias continued, stepping closer to the center of the chamber. "You may offer treaties, alliances, or arrangements meant to control us. We will consider them, yes, but know this: humanity is not easily swayed. We will defend our people, our worlds, and our future. If you expect us to bend to your will without question, you will be disappointed." A ripple of unease spread through the delegates. No one had spoken to the council like this before. The human words carried neither threats nor arrogance, yet they shook the very foundation of centuries of council procedure. Some delegates clenched their hands, their scales or fur bristling with discomfort. Others murmured to themselves, already questioning whether the humans were more dangerous than any weapon they had ever faced. Elias glanced at his team. Each member of the human delegation met his eyes with quiet strength. They did not speak, yet the message was clear. Humanity was united. They would not falter. As the session ended, humans returned to their quarters. They knew the first impression had been made. The council had underestimated them, and the ripple of uncertainty had begun. Outside, the spires of Novara Prime gleamed under the light of distant suns, and Elias allowed himself a small, rare smile. The galaxy would remember this day. Humans had arrived not as beggars, not as followers, but as equals who demanded to be seen and heard. And somewhere in the hearts of the council delegates, a seed of panic quietly began to grow. The next day, the Galactic Council reconvened. The crystal halls of Novara Prime gleamed under the twin suns of the planet, but the atmosphere was tense, heavy with anticipation. Delegates from hundreds of star systems took their seats, some with pride, others with suspicion. Whispers filled the chamber as aliens exchanged worried glances. Humans had made a bold entrance yesterday. Today, the real test would begin. The test of diplomacy, negotiation, and resolve. Captain Elias Renner took his place at the center of the human delegation. He did not glance at the other species with arrogance or fear. Instead, he surveyed the chamber with steady, calm eyes. Beside him stood his team, officers, diplomats, and scientists, each trained for years to face challenges like this. They were humans, untested in galactic politics, yet stronger than any council expected. The first alien delegation approached the podium, a group of crystalline beings, their bodies shimmering with every movement. Their leader, a tall figure of refracted light, spoke in measured tones. "Humans," it said, "the council welcomes you, but you must understand the rules. You will abide by our treaties. You will pay tribute to the council. You will limit your technological expansion. You will follow our guidance in matters of galactic law." Elias's jaw tightened, but his voice remained calm. "We are here to negotiate," he said slowly, "but we are not here to surrender. Humans will not compromise their freedom or the safety of our people for the sake of tradition or fear. A murmur ran through the chamber. Some delegates tried to hide their shock. Others whispered urgently to their neighbors. No one had spoken to the council with such clarity, such confidence, and such quiet strength. Humans were not bowing. Humans were not afraid. The crystalline leader tilted its head, a gesture that suggested both curiosity and warning. "You misunderstand," it said. "The council maintains order. Without obedience, chaos will follow." Elias leaned forward slightly. "Order is meaningless if it comes at the cost of freedom," he said. "Humans will not bow to fear. We will defend ourselves. We will build alliances based on trust, not coercion. We will not submit to your rules if they endanger our people or our future." Whispers erupted again. The council had expected debate, perhaps even resistance, but not this unwavering defiance. Some species shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The serpentine delegates hissed quietly, their tongues flickering nervously. Giants shifted their massive bodies, knocking over small floating devices. Light beings glimmered more brightly than usual, signaling agitation. Humans had unsettled everyone without raising a weapon. The negotiations continued for hours. Delegates tried intimidation, citing centuries of council authority, fleets, and technological superiority. Others appealed to emotion, speaking of tradition, unity, and the so-called peace of the galaxy. Each time, humans responded with reason, clarity, and logic. "We respect your history," Elias said, "but respect is earned. You cannot expect submission merely because your council has existed longer than our species. Humans are not children of the galaxy. We are equals, and we demand to be treated as such." By the end of the day, tension had replaced confidence in the chamber. Some council members whispered urgently to each other, debating how to handle humans. Others began to worry openly. The humans had not attacked, had not threatened, but their words, their calm courage, had struck fear into hearts that had known no fear for centuries. Elias and his delegation returned to their quarters. They were exhausted, but their spirits were high. They had done more than speak, they had shaken the council. Outside, the suns of Novara Prime cast long golden rays across the city, and Elias allowed himself a quiet smile. Humanity had arrived. Humanity had made its mark. And deep in the crystal halls of the council, the first seed of panic began to grow. The morning sun of Novara Prime barely touched the council chamber when chaos struck. One of the older, proudest delegations, the Xylarans, a species known for their fleet strength and strict control over trade routes, attempted to isolate Earth's fleet in the orbital ring above the planet. They expected compliance, an easy warning to keep humans in line, but they had underestimated humanity. Captain Elias Renner watched the reports come in on the human fleet. Sensors indicated the Xylaran ships were forming a blockade, moving with precision to cut off communication and trade. Most species would have panicked, but humans did not. Elias leaned back in his command chair, his fingers steepled in thought. "They want to test us," he muttered. "Let them see what humans can do without firing a shot." Across the orbital ring, human ships moved like a single organism, small but highly coordinated. The fleet was a mix of stealth vessels, agile fighters, and heavy defensive cruisers. Each ship communicated silently through advanced quantum links, anticipating moves before the enemy made them. The Xylarans expected fear. Instead, they encountered precision, calm, and strategy. "Deploy Formation Delta," Elias ordered. "Maintain defensive positions. Do not fire unless attacked." His voice was calm, yet it carried authority that made every human officer feel unshakable. In the fleet, humans followed orders with seamless unity, a combination of instinct, training, and trust. The Xylarans moved closer, confident that humans would surrender. But as they advanced, the humans executed maneuvers that forced the alien ships to slow, change direction, and reconsider their approach. Communication within the Xylaran command was frantic. They could not understand how such a young species, barely decades into space exploration, could counter their oldest strategies with such fluidity. Meanwhile, in the council chamber, word of the standoff spread like wildfire. Delegates whispered urgently, sending messages and reassessing their earlier judgments. Panic began to replace the calm authority they had relied on for centuries. Humans had not fired a single shot, yet they had proven they could defend themselves. Back in the fleet, a Xylaran commander sent a warning signal, aggressive in tone, But the human response was not hostility. It was reason, clarity, and calm. "You may approach," one human ship replied. "You may, but understand this. Any act of aggression will be met with equal force. Humans do not seek war, but we will protect ourselves." The Xylarans hesitated. For centuries, no one had dared to speak this way. They expected surrender, they expected fear, but they were confronted with confidence, strategy, and unity. Slowly, the blockade faltered. Ships pulled back, reevaluating their options. Inside the council chamber, the atmosphere shifted completely. Where there had once been patience and controlled discussion, now there was fear, confusion, and whispers of crisis. Some delegates argued among themselves, unsure whether humans were reckless or terrifyingly clever. Others quietly sent messages calling for compromise, fearing escalation that could affect their own systems. Captain Elias Renner watched the retreating ships on the holographic map. His face remained calm, but inside a mixture of relief and determination surged. Humanity had passed the first real test. They had shown restraint, intelligence, and the willingness to defend themselves. They had not only survived, they had shattered assumptions. As the sun set over Novara Prime, the Council convened in emergency sessions. Panic had begun to creep into every corner. Humans had proven they were not to be ignored. They had reshaped the perception of power in the galaxy, not through threats or violence, but through courage, strategy, and unity. In the quiet moments of the evening, Elias allowed himself a rare, brief smile. Humanity had faced its first real challenge in the galaxy, and they had triumphed. The Xylarans had learned to respect and perhaps fear the humans. The Council had learned the same. Somewhere deep in the crystal halls, the first real cracks of panic were forming. Humanity had not yet made its final move, but the message was already clear. The galaxy would never underestimate Earth again. After the Xylaran blockade had been quietly withdrawn, the council chambers were filled with tension unlike anything they had seen before. The humans had proven they could defend themselves in space without firing a single shot. But Captain Elias Renner knew that victory in battle was only the beginning. The real war, one of influence, reason, and perception, was about to begin. Humans would not rely on brute force alone. They would use their greatest weapon, intellect. Elias gathered his team in their quarters, a room filled with holographic maps, data streams, and simulations of council procedures. "They fear us now," he said calmly, looking at each member of his delegation. "Not because of our ships, but because of our minds. This is where humans excel. They expect compliance, tradition, and obedience. We will give them something far more unsettling: clarity, reason, and determination." The next council session began, and humans approached it not as combatants but as teachers. Every argument the council had made, every treaty that relied on hierarchy or fear, humans questioned with precision. When a delegate from the crystalline species tried to argue that Earth should pay tribute for protection, Elias responded without anger. "Protection is earned through cooperation and trust," he said, "not by demanding payment or obedience. Humans value freedom, and freedom cannot be bought or sold." The effect was immediate. Delegates whispered urgently among themselves. Some were frustrated, others confused. Every time they tried to press humans with threats or emotional appeals, the humans dismantled their arguments calmly and logically. No insult was thrown, no anger displayed, yet the power of their reasoning was undeniable. For the first time in history, the council realized that humans operated differently. They were unpredictable, yes, but not reckless. They were clever, yes, but principled. Every word from Captain Renner seemed to echo a challenge to centuries of authority, yet it was delivered with respect. "We respect the history of the council," he said, "but respect is not automatic. It must be earned. We will not bow to fear, and we will not ignore injustice. The galaxy must be fair if it hopes to survive." A murmur of fear spread across the chamber. Delegates shifted in their seats, some flicking light signals to allies, others hissing or murmuring to their neighbors. The humans were not attacking, yet every species felt pressure unlike anything they had faced. Elias noticed subtle changes. Alliances formed quietly, whispers of compromise, anxious calculations of risk. Humans had done something remarkable. They had weaponized their intellect and their courage, and it was more powerful than any fleet or weapon. Hours passed. The council grew restless, panicked even. Discussions that would normally take weeks ended in chaos. The humans simply listened, corrected errors, exposed contradictions, and asked simple but profound questions. Each question carried weight. Each answer forced the council to reconsider centuries of assumptions. Elias watched from the center of the chamber, his face calm, but his mind alert. "We are not here to destroy them," he reminded his team. "We are here to show the galaxy what humans are. Every time they fear us, every time they hesitate, they learn, and we gain respect, not through violence but through truth." By the end of the session, a strange energy had taken over the council. What began as arrogance and control had turned into uncertainty and fear. Delegates who had once looked down on humans were now questioning themselves. Some quietly discussed temporary compromises. Others whispered of forming new rules just to contain humanity. But deep down, they feared they had already lost control. As the humans returned to their quarters that evening, Elias allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. Humanity had entered the council not just as newcomers but as a force to be reckoned with. They had not fought battles, yet they had conquered minds. The seed of panic had grown into a storm, and the council would never see the galaxy in the same way again. Outside, Novara Prime's twin suns dipped behind the horizon, casting golden shadows over the crystal spires. For the humans, the real work had just begun. The council had been shaken, but the game of galactic influence was far from over. And humanity was ready. The council had never been so unsettled. Panic that began as quiet whispers in the crystal halls had now become a storm of fear and confusion. Humans had dismantled their traditions, questioned their authority, and proven that they could defend themselves in ways no species had imagined. And yet some council members refused to accept it. They believed that threats, intimidation, or manipulation could bend humanity to their will. Captain Elias Renner watched from the observation platform of the human command ship, a calm presence amid the tension that pulsed through the galaxy. Reports arrived continuously, fleets moving nervously, alien delegations sending urgent messages, emergency council sessions called in secret. The humans had changed the rules of engagement without firing a single shot. Now it was time to solidify their position, not with anger, but with brilliance. The Xylarans tried again, this time using a combination of their fleet and allies from nearby systems to isolate human trade routes. Elias calmly analyzed the situation. "They are testing us again," he said. "Let's show them how humans respond to strategy, not panic." The human fleet executed maneuvers that were both elegant and deadly precise. Each ship moved as part of a living organism, anticipating the moves of every enemy vessel. Fighters darted through asteroid belts, cruisers positioned themselves to cut off escape routes, and yet no one fired unless provoked. The Xylarans found themselves outmaneuvered at every turn, their complex tactics rendered ineffective by humans who were fluid, adaptable, and fearless. In the council chamber, the effect was immediate. Delegates watched holographic feeds showing the movements of the human fleet. Panic spread like wildfire. For the first time, some questioned not only the humans but the council itself. "How can a species so young in space travel defy centuries of our authority?" whispered a crystalline delegate to its neighbor. Others argued furiously, pointing fingers at each other, seeking someone to blame for underestimating Earth. Meanwhile, human diplomats in the chamber worked tirelessly to strengthen their position. They exposed inconsistencies in treaties, highlighted failures of past alliances, and quietly built alliances with other neutral systems. The humans were not aggressive, but their clarity and intelligence created fear. Every time the council tried to intimidate them, humanity responded with reason, planning, and unshakable unity. Elias knew the council's panic was growing. It was not enough to fight them physically. He had to win in every possible way. "Remember," he said to his team, "we are not here to humiliate them. We are here to show what humans can achieve when courage, intellect, and unity are combined. They must see our power, not through war but through skill and strategy." By midday, the council was in open chaos. Delegates shouted, argued, and sent emergency communications to their home systems. The humans had not made a single aggressive move, yet fear was evident in every corner of the galaxy. Some species called for immediate compromise. Others quietly feared that their traditions and rules were already obsolete. Elias watched silently as the Xylarans' fleet withdrew once again, unable to execute their plan.